Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the endocrinology. It is the study of the whole endocrine system. Hypothalamus, it is the mastermind of the whole endocrine system. Now, the hypothalamus, it weighs about 4 gram and it is almost the size of a nail. This hypothalamus, it also controls your emotions like anger, and it also controls the whole autonomic nervous system of your body. Autonomic nervous system of your body. It also controls the reproductive system, and with the reproductive system, it also controls the sexual activity of a person and different other functions as well. So what actually happens that the hypothalamus, it consists of certain nuclei and cells which will release certain factors and hormones which will act on certain glands in our body, and these glands will produce certain hormones which will act on different organs of our body, and it will give us some result. Now the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, actually it is 600 milligram or 0.5 to 1 gram in size. It is also called as the hypophysis. Now pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus. This is the hypothalamus, it, and this is the pituitary gland. So pituitary gland is connected with the hypothalamus by hypophyseal stalk. Now, this is the connection. Now, what we will do, what is this pituitary gland and how it is divided? So, actually, the pituitary gland, it is divided into two different lobes, and these lobe, one is the interior lobe and the another one is the posterior lobe. This pituitary gland, it is located inside the sella turcica, and this sella turcica, it provides protection to the pituitary gland. Now, if we talk about the embryology of the pituitary gland, so this is the interior pituitary and this one is the posterior pituitary gland. So the interior pituitary, it actually develops from the nasopharynx. From the nasopharynx, actually there will come some epithelial invaginations. Remember, epithelial invagination, which is called as Rothk's pouch. Rothk's pouch. This Rothk's pouch from the nasopharynx, it will detach and it will come and it will attach here to the hypophyseal stalk. So this is the nasopharynx. Now about the posterior pituitary, what actually happens that the posterior pituitary, it is actually the extension of the diencephalon or the extension of the hypothalamus. So it means that it will have some neurological connections with the hypothalamus. Now we will talk about the relationship of the hypothalamus with the posterior pituitary. So in the hypothalamus, we have two nuclei. One is called sun, which is supraoptic nucleus. Supraoptic nucleus. And the second one, it is the PVN, which is paraventricular nucleus. Now what actually happens, that these two nuclei, they will produce hormones, and these hormones are the vasopressin, which is also called as ADH. Hypothalamus, it will produces hormones, which one, the first one is oxytocin, and the second one ADH, we call it antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone. And this ADH, it is also called as vasopressin. Vasopressin. So actually, the hypothalamus will produce these two hormones, oxytocin and ADH, and these hormones will be produced by the nuclei in the hypothalamus, which is the supraoptic nucleus and the paraventricular ventral nucleus. Now, the supraoptic nucleus, it produces 90% of vasopressin. It will produce 90% of vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone, while the ventricular nucleus, it will produce 90% of oxytocin. So what does it mean? That the majority of the production, it varies, that the supraoptic nucleus, it mostly produces the vasopressin, while the paraventricular nucleus, it produces 90% of oxytocin. Now when they are produced here, then there is some certain connections of the hypothalamus with the posterior pituitary. So some axons are coming from the hypothalamus and from these nuclei, and they are extended and they have a swelling, and these swelling are also, we call this as nerve endings. So what actually happens, that when hypothalamus produces these hormones will come through these axons and they will be stored in these nerve endings. So now we are going to talk about the relationship of the hypothalamus with the interior pituitary. So that whole hypothalamus and the interior pituitary, they are interconnected with each other. Now remember that in the hypothalamus there are some cells releasing factors and inhibiting factors as well. So different types of releasing factors are present, like thyroid releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, corticotropic releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, as well as dopamine. Remember that it is the inhibiting factor. Later I will explain. Now what actually happens, that let's talk first about this growth hormone. Growth hormone releasing hormone, it is a factor for the growth hormone. Remember, it is itself, it's not a growth hormone. It is growth hormone releasing hormone, means that the factor which will come and it will release the growth hormone. So growth hormone releasing hormone, it will come to the pituitary gland, and here it will, in the interior pituitary, it will act on the cell and in the cell they will release growth hormones, and now this growth hormone, it will come to the liver. So when it comes to the liver, it do two functions. One, it produces the insulin like growth factor 1, IGF-1, insulin like growth factor 1. And the second one, it goes to the chondrocytes and they do their linear growth as well as the organ growth. We will explain these in our next videos, that how actually growth hormone works. Now the second, if we talk about the thyroid releasing hormone. So the thyroid releasing hormone, it will come to the interior pituitary. Their thyrotropes are present. They will produce thyroid stimulating hormone. So now what will happen? This thyroid stimulating hormone, it will come and it will act on the thyroid gland. It will act, thyroid stimulating hormone, it will come and it will act on the thyroid gland, and then this thyroid gland, it will produce T4 and T3, and they will do the different thermogenesis regulations, etc. in our body. Now gonadotropin releasing hormone, this is also present in the hypothalamus. It will come down to the interior pituitary and it will release two hormones. One is the luteinizing hormone and the another one is the follicle stimulating hormone. These hormones, when it comes, it will go down and it will work on the testes and ovaries. In the ovaries, it will produce estradiol, progesterone, and inhibin. And what will be the function of this? So the main function of this is the ovulation, and along with the ovulation, some secondary sexual characteristic. They are responsible for these things. In the testes, of course, it will produce the testosterone. Now, let's talk about the corticotropic releasing hormone. This hormone will come to the interior pituitary and there they will release the ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. It will work on the adrenal glands. They will release cortisol, and this cortisol, it is responsible for the cell homeostasis and the function of all these cells. Now one thing which is very interesting, this dopamine, actually from the hypothalamus, the prolactin inhibiting factors are releasing. So when it comes to the interior pituitary, here those cells, they are responsible for the production of prolactin. Now what actually happens? From here, inhibiting factors come. So it means when this inhibiting factor will come, it will stop the production of this prolactin hormone. So what does it mean? It means that the lactation will stop actually. If these inhibiting factors will come and it will act on these cells, then this prolactin production will be stopped. And if this prolactin production is stopped or slower, so it means that the lactation will also be what? Slower. If these inhibiting factors are not released, so it means that the prolactin production will be more. So actually this is to control the production of prolactin. From the hypothalamus, the inhibiting factors are released. Now there is one an interesting and conceptual point here. If there comes any trauma in the pituitary stalk, so what will happen actually? That all these hormones, whether it is thyroid releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone, and here these growth all will increase. All the production of all these hormones, it will be decreased, but only the production of prolactin will be increased. Why? Because the other, they are the releasing factors, but in case of the prolactin, inhibiting factors are coming.